One hot afternoon in Lagos, a girl with broken slippers gave her last 850 Nigerian nairas to save a stranger dying in a gutter, not knowing he was the father of a billionaire. They mocked her, fired her, ignored her, but that act of kindness changed everything. Now, 2 years later, she's no longer a delivery girl. She's a name, a force, a target. And if you think this is a love story, think again. Because the same world that lifted her is ready to bury her alive. The foundation event was flawless. Rows of gold chairs, velvet ropes, flashing cameras, women in jeel and men in agbada, politicians pretending to care, socialites pretending to give. At the center of it all stood Chinaza, confident, gracious, radiant. She wore a simple green gown, nothing flashy, just strong. Her braids were packed in a bun, her lips barely touched with gloss. But her voice was thunder in a soft bottle. When I was 23, I was fired for helping a dying man. Now, we've built shelters in 5 states, trained 320 girls, fed over 10,000 families. Why? Because no one should be punished for doing the right thing. The applause was thunderous. Obinna, seated quietly at the back, gave a soft smile. He didn't like the spotlight, but tonight, he was proud. Then came the scarf. After the event, as Chinaza stepped down from the podium, a young girl in the crowd pushed forward. She was shaking. "Please. I don't have food. I heard you give jobs." Chinaza leaned in, gently removed her scarf, and tied it around the girl's shoulders. "You just found a sister. Come to the foundation tomorrow. We'll talk." The cameras caught it. The headlines the next morning, not about the speech, but about a former delivery girl who dressed like royalty and still bowed to a street girl. And that was the moment. Angela returned. But not with guns. With ink. That afternoon, Obinna's legal department received a letter. Misuse of humanitarian funds. It was anonymous. Well written. Accompanied by evidence of misallocation. Same trick. Different flavor. But this time, Angela wasn't working alone. Because someone, inside the foundation, had joined her. And they weren't just after Chinaza's job. They were after her name. 2 days later, Chinaza was at the community center in Mushin, supervising roof repairs when her phone buzzed. She didn't recognize the number, but picked anyway. "Hello. Miss Chinaza Nwachukwu, this is Inspector Akin of the Economic Crimes Division. We need you to report to our office. You're being investigated for laundering 7.4 million Nigerian nairas through fake outreach events." The line went dead. She stood there, frozen. Her chest tightened. Her ears rang. Laundering? Her. Obinna didn't answer her calls that evening. Neither did Shode. And that's when she knew it had begun again. Only this time, they were smarter. The next morning, her image was on the blogs again. Ex-delivery girl caught in new fraud scandal. Inside Chinaza Foundation's 7.4 million Nigerian nairas ghost events. Was it all a script from the beginning? Suddenly, donors paused funding. Volunteers stopped reporting. Even the security guards at the gate began to look at her differently. And Obinna, still silent, still watching, still calculating. That evening, she stormed into his office. "You think I did this?" He looked up, calm as always. "I don't know what to think, Chinaza. The documents look real." "They looked real last time too," she snapped. "So what now? You push me out quietly again." Obinna stood, walked toward her. "No. I'm giving you 3 days. Clear this. Or step aside while we investigate." Her jaw tightened. "And what happens to all the girls counting on us?" He didn't answer. Just turned back to his desk. Like he was trying to choose between war and regret. That night, she called Shode. But the number didn't ring. Blocked. And that's when she knew the betrayal had started from inside. Day 1 of the storm. She didn't hide. She went to the Mushin shelter, held babies, signed papers, and fixed pipes herself. But the press followed her. Microphones in her face. Questions thrown like stones. Are you embezzling funds, Miss Chinaza? Is this all a PR stunt? Who are you without Obina's money? She didn't respond. Not yet. Not until she had answers. Then, just as she entered her office, a soft knock. A woman entered. Dark skin. Clean suit. Lavender perfume. Eyes sharp. She smiled politely. Miss Chinaza, I'm Lillian. I represent a private group interested in helping you clear your name. Chinaza narrowed her eyes. What group? Lillian placed a white envelope on the table. One signature. One press conference. And this story disappears. You'll even get a new NGO. In your name. Abroad. What's the catch? Lillian's smile widened. Disassociate yourself from Obina. Publicly. And admit he manipulated you. Chinaza stared at her. You want me to destroy the only person who believed in me? Lillian shrugged. Believed. Or used. Silence. Then Lillian whispered something chilling. This isn't about truth, my dear. It's about narratives. And right now, yours is bleeding. We're offering stitches. Then she left. No threats. Just the perfume. And the scent of war. That night, Chinaza didn't sleep. She sat by the window, holding the same scarf she once gave up, now returned to her by the little girl who had joined the foundation and said, Auntie Kai, you made me feel like somebody. And that's when Chinaza made a decision. She would fight. But not just for herself. For every girl watching her. Every orphan praying to become more than their past. Every woman tired of being reduced to who they used to be. Jonathan Ease was no longer the dying man in the gutter. He was now recovering in a private suite, top floor of Medic's hospital, guarded by 2 security men and monitored by Obina's most trusted physician. But his heart, still fragile. He couldn't walk far, couldn't talk long, but every word he spoke mattered. And tonight, as the rain pattered softly against the hospital windows, he stared at the ceiling and whispered, Get me Chinaza. His voice was weak, but determined. The nurse called her at 9:47 p.m. She arrived by 10:15. Still dressed in foundation-branded sweatpants, face bare, scarf tied behind her head. She looked tired, but ready. He gestured for her to come closer. She sat beside him, holding his hand gently. They're trying to finish you, he said. She nodded. I know. I warned Obina this would happen. The moment he chose truth over power, loyalty would turn to poison. She squeezed his hand. They want me gone. Again. Jonathan looked into her eyes. Then it's time they remember, the delivery girl who saved a dying man. He reached beneath his pillow and pulled out an old, yellowing envelope. It was worn, sealed with wax, and faintly marked. For the day the storm returns. Inside was a handwritten document, a personal statement from Jonathan, written 9 months earlier while still in physical therapy. It detailed everything. How Chinaza saved him without knowing who he was. How she sacrificed her job, income, and health to help. How she visited daily for 14 weeks. How she gave him back the will to live. At the end, he had written one final line in bold ink. If the world ever turns on her, let this remind them, without her, I would be a name carved in stone, not a father watching his son love again. She burst into tears. He handed her the envelope and whispered, It's not just your protection. It's your sword. The next morning, she arrived at the office, with that letter in her bag. But she didn't use it yet. Because something else was coming. Something bigger. And her enemies were already moving fast. That same morning, Obina stood on the 41st floor of his Lekki tower, reading a new report his tech team just decrypted. It was an offshore financial summary, linked to one of his charity's ghost vendors. The name on the shell company, Chinaza Investments Limited. His heart skipped. Chinaza, the woman who'd been by his side for 7 years. The one who vouched for Chinaza every step of the way. He called his internal auditor. Trace all withdrawals, vendor signatures, internal approvals. By 11:30 a.m., it was confirmed. The fake 7.4 million Nigerian naira scandal, engineered by Chinaza and funneled through ghost beneficiaries in Port Harcourt and Abuja. The signatures, forged, using documents Obinna signed digitally during his international trips. But the question wasn't just how. It was why. Obinna called her into his office. She walked in, dressed immaculately, with her tablet in hand. "You called me, sir." He didn't even look up. Just turned his screen and showed her the documents. She blinked, paused, then smiled softly. "I was wondering when you'd find out." Obinna's hand curled into a fist. "Why, Chinaza?" She leaned forward. "You replaced me with a delivery girl." He stood up. "You destroyed everything we built. For what? Jealousy?" She snapped. "For survival. You stopped listening to me the day she walked in. I gave you loyalty. She gave you emotions." He stared at her, stunned by the venom. Then he said, voice low, "Get out. And pray I don't send this to the authorities." She chuckled. "Too late. You'll need me before this ends." And she walked out. But Obinna wasn't done. He sent copies of the documents directly to the EFCC. He released a press statement, "Foundation cleared. Investigation ongoing. Chinaza innocent." He called her, but she didn't pick, because she had received something far more disturbing. At exactly 2:02 p.m., a delivery rider knocked on her door. She was alone, still wearing her scarf, still shaken from the hospital night. The rider said, "Delivery for Miss Chinaza. No sender." She signed. It was a small brown box, wrapped neatly. She opened it. Inside were 9 photographs. Glossy, clean, disturbing. Each one showed her, at different stages of the past year, leaving the hospital with Obinna's father, smiling in front of the foundation shelter, hugging a child, boarding a plane to Abuja. On the back of each photo, handwritten in red ink, were words like, "The puppet," "The weakness," "The replacement," "The target." And at the bottom of the box was a flash drive. She inserted it into her laptop. A video began to play. It was footage of her office, her desk, her laptop screen. Someone had hacked her webcam, had been watching her for months. She clutched her chest. Then the video ended with one line typed on the screen. "You shouldn't have saved him." Her phone rang. Unknown number. She picked. A deep voice said, "We needed him to die that day, Chinaza. You interfered with something far bigger than your scarf and 850 Nigerian nairas. Now, you'll bleed for it." Call ended. Her hands trembled. She ran to Jonathan's hospital suite, but it was empty. Panic set in. She called Obinna. "Your father is missing." Silence. Then a voice behind her, not from the phone, real, present. "No. I'm here." She turned. Jonathan stood in the doorway, with a file in his hand. "They tried to abduct me, but I was ready. And it's time you saw what really happened in 1994. He opened the file. Newspaper clippings, old ledger sheets, black and white photos of a warehouse fire. And at the center of it all, a name. Angela Kalu. The woman they thought they had already defeated was never working alone. And she wasn't done. Jonathan sat across from Chinaza with the file in his hands. His voice was low, deliberate. "Angela's mother was once the second largest shareholder in our oil and real estate group. Her name was Chinelo Kalu. Sharp, calculating, dangerous. He pulled out an old newspaper. The headline: Fire Guts Kalu Oil Warehouse, 3 dead, 1 injured. They said it was an accident, but she claimed it was sabotage, that we did it to edge her out. Chinaza leaned in. Was it true? Jonathan shook his head slowly. No. Chinelo's greed destroyed her. She funneled money into side projects. When she was caught, she blamed us. But before we could settle legally, she died. She stared at the image of Chinelo. A striking resemblance to Angela, same sharp cheekbones, same fire in the eyes. Jonathan continued. Angela grew up believing we killed her mother. She swore to get revenge. She wormed her way through the legal department, gained Obina's trust, and began plotting. Chinaza's voice cracked. So the day I saw you on the road. He nodded. Was the day they tried to finish me. Angela and Sade paid a rogue medic to inject me with a heart-spiking serum. Then another dose to erase my memory. They dumped me in the mud like garbage, dressed me like a drunk, hoping no one would look twice. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for her palm. But you saw me. You looked. You cared. And that ruined everything. Chinaza felt the weight of it. She had saved more than a man. She had saved the last line of defense. Meanwhile, Angela was in a room. Dark. Quiet. Elegant. She lit a cigarette and stood beside a tall window, watching the city. Sade sat across from her. They've cleared her name again, Sade muttered. Angela exhaled smoke through her nose. I expected that. Sade frowned. So what now? Angela turned. Her eyes gleamed with vengeance. Now, we remove Obina. We turn the board. We sink the brand. And when the fire starts again, I want her to watch it burn. 2 weeks later, Obina walked into the boardroom unaware of the storm waiting inside. The directors sat unusually still. Files closed. Faces unreadable. At the head of the table, Mr. Oguntario, a long-time associate, cleared his throat. Chairman, we've received a motion of no confidence. 4 signatures. Obina froze. What motion? Another board member slid a document forward. Request for temporary removal of Obina as acting chairman pending independent audit. He laughed bitterly. You're joking. We're not, Mr. Oguntario replied coldly. The foundation scandal shook our public image. Investors want reassurance. They believe your relationship with Chinaza is compromising objectivity. Obina clenched his jaw. This is Angela, isn't it? A pause. Then another board member said, she's gained the trust of the minority shareholders. And she's pushing for a new leadership vote. Obina stood slowly. You want to remove me, fine. But remember this, I built this company's second empire. While you played politics, I was expanding into 3 continents. So before you sign her name on your soul, ask yourselves, how long before she comes for you too? Silence. Then he walked out. That night, Chinaza found him on the rooftop. His shirt was open. Sleeves rolled. Face to the sky. She said nothing. Just stood beside him. Then he whispered. My mother didn't kill Chinelo. But she did hide things. She thought it was for peace. But peace built on secrets always turns to war. Chinaza looked at him. You're losing the board. He nodded. She reached into her bag and pulled out Jonathan's handwritten letter, the one he gave her weeks ago. Then we fight back. Not with gossip, but with the truth. Angela's return to the board was subtle. She didn't demand. She infiltrated. Every morning, she met with minority shareholders. Told them stories of betrayal. Accused Obina of nepotism. Called the foundation a money laundering pipeline. And behind closed doors, she painted a picture of a company in crisis. But what she didn't know was that someone was watching her. Back at the hospital, Jonathan Ayres had secretly begun compiling evidence, names, dates, financial trails, linking Angela and Sade to multiple sabotage attempts. He even hired a private cyber-forensics expert, a young tech guru from the Foundation's youth empowerment wing named Jude. Jude found something strange. A hidden drive in Sade's old laptop, containing a series of private recordings. One of them, a conversation between Angela and the rogue medic who injected Jonathan with the memory-erasing drug. In the recording, Angela said, "Make it look like he died drunk. No one will help a crazy old man. Not in this city. Just make sure his mouth never opens again." The recording was chilling. And it was time to play it. Chinaza walked into the next Foundation event. Not as a guest, but as the keynote speaker. She took the mic. Obinna stood silently behind her. Jonathan, hidden in a private suite upstairs, listened through a wireless earpiece. Cameras were rolling. The room was packed. Then she began. "Some of you remember me as the girl who saved a stranger on the street. But what you don't know is that stranger wasn't just a man. He was a truth buried beneath lies. And now, I'm here to unbury it." She pressed a button. The recording played over the loudspeakers. Angela's voice echoed through the hall. "Just make sure his mouth never opens again." Gasps filled the room. Phones flew into the air, recording. Journalists turned. Chairs shifted. Obinna stepped forward and said, "You wanted a villain. She made herself one. But it was the delivery girl you all mocked, who became the wall between our legacy and ruin." Angela, watching the livestream from her suite, crushed the wine glass in her hand. And whispered, "They just declared war." After the press conference and Angela's initial arrest, the city thought it was over. They were wrong. Angela had only played her first card. 2 days after her arrest, during her transfer from court to prison custody, the van was intercepted. The guards were fake. Bought and planted. By the time the escort arrived at the prison gate, Angela was gone. Gone, and silent. The public was shocked. News outlets speculated. Who helped her escape? Is this a political cover-up? Where is the woman who confessed to planning a billionaire's death? The boardroom was tense. The streets were confused. But behind the scenes, Angela was 5 steps ahead. She was now in what insiders called the Black Room, a private luxury suite built into the basement of one of the old Kalu estates in Enugu. There, behind fingerprint-secured doors, Angela watched everything unfold on a screen: news clips, social feeds, financial updates. She was no longer chasing the company. She wanted revenge. "They think I'm finished. They forget what this bloodline can do," she whispered. Sitting beside her was Dr. Felix, the medic who injected Jonathan Ayres 2 years ago, now working for her full-time. "Everything's in place," he told her. 3 former staff of the Ayres Foundation are ready to testify falsely against Chinaza again, for a new round of embezzlement. The signature forgeries are done. Angela's lips curved. "This time, we're not hitting her name. We're hitting her soul." Meanwhile, Obinna, Chinaza, and Jonathan were preparing for the company's biggest annual event, the Founders Legacy Conference. A grand gathering of investors, international partners, and high-profile media. Chinaza had been asked to deliver the keynote address. But one night, she received an envelope at her hotel door. No name. Inside, a printed screenshot of her old hospital ID, placed side by side with a falsified receipt showing her name on a 16 million Nigerian nairas medical equipment contract. Stamped. Signed. But she never signed it. Her fingers trembled. Not again. The Legacy Conference was held at the Grand Orchid Convention Hall. White lights. Red carpets. 4,000 guests. Everything sparkled. But behind the beauty, storm clouds formed. While Chinaza stood backstage preparing her keynote speech, a whisper passed through the crowd. "There's a fresh fraud allegation. She might not speak today." "Isn't this the second time?" Maybe Obina's blind with love. Obina stood in the front row, jaw clenched. Beside him, Jonathan, cane in hand, watching carefully. Chinaza came out, heart pounding. Cameras flashed. She stepped to the podium. Then, a power outage. The hall went dark for 12 seconds. When the lights returned, a projector behind her had begun playing a slideshow of evidence against her. Forged documents. Fake receipts. Voiceovers edited to sound like her voice. The room gasped. Obina stood. Security rushed forward. The audience descended into chaos. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the sound system. "You didn't think I'd let her win, did you?" It was Angela. Her voice. Broadcasted from a hidden server. "She stole my legacy. They killed my mother. Now I'm taking it all back." Panic. Board members tried to exit. Investors argued. But then, a second screen flickered on. This time, showing Angela's black room. Live. She didn't know it. Behind her, a tiny blinking light had been attached to Dr. Felix's jacket weeks ago, when he unknowingly visited one of Jonathan's trusted doctors. The camera was feeding her live location straight to the company's internal tech unit. "There she is," one of the security techs shouted from the command room. Obina yelled, "Trace and track, now." Within 23 minutes, a SWAT team stormed the old Kalu estate in Enugu. Angela tried to escape through a tunnel. But Chinaza's voice played on the speakers within the compound. "You used lies. I used truth. You used pain. I used love. And today, the story ends with justice." Angela was cornered. Cuffed. Screaming, "You'll never own what I bled for. Never." Obina and Jonathan watched the arrest via a secure livestream backstage. Chinaza was shaking. Obina held her hand. Jonathan placed his hand on both of theirs and said, "Now we can finally breathe." By evening, Angela's arrest was national news. Dr. Felix, the 3 fake staff, and Shode, already in custody, were all formally charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, identity fraud, corporate sabotage, cyber terrorism. 3 months later, everything had changed. The foundation had expanded to 2 more countries. Investor confidence soared. And Chinaza was no longer a new name. She was a pillar. The woman who once ran across Lagos in slippers now sat in meetings with global CEOs, governors, and foreign envoys. Obina had proposed in a private dinner, with her scarf wrapped around the box. "You changed my father's heartbeat. Now I want you to hold mine." They got married by the ocean, a quiet, breathtaking ceremony. Jonathan Ez wore a deep green agbada and gave the toast. "I was supposed to die in silence. But God sent me a daughter, with a bottle of water and a heart of fire. Today, I step down and hand over my companies to Obina, and his wife, my daughter, Chinaza Ez." The audience stood and cheered. 3 weeks later, the new nameplate was installed at the company's Lagos HQ. Ez Global Holdings. Co-chaired by Obina and Chinaza Ez. And beside it, etched in glass, dedicated to the girl who gave everything to save one man, and ended up saving an empire. Moral of the story. 1. Real power doesn't shout. It sacrifices. Chinaza never forced her way in, she gave everything, and earned everything. 2. Kindness will take you places money can't. No CV, no connections, just pure humanity. 3. Truth is slower than lies, but it always arrives. Angela ran with deception. Chinaza walked with truth, and truth won. 4. Where you start doesn't define where you'll finish. A delivery girl saved a billionaire's father, and became a queen of industry. She was just trying to survive. But her kindness changed a billionaire's legacy. They mocked her, fired her, framed her, but she stood, and kept standing, until the world finally bowed to the truth. This is not just a story of love. It's a story of destiny. and how one act of compassion can rewrite the future. If this story moved you, share it. Comment. Subscribe. Because someone out there still believes no one sees their kindness. Let them know we do.
Thank you so much for watching this powerful story. I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.